What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Marriage and Medicine. On today's video, we would like to talk a little bit about the pre-home buying process and basically things that you need to kind of think about, research, to kind of get an understanding of what you need to do prior to attempting to buy a house.
So I'll make sure I share all of the details, like resources and stuff, in the little detail section of this video, but there was a lot of things we did prior to starting our process of buying a house, which if you didn't know, we're buying a house.
Bought a house.
Yeah,
Getting
essentially.
built.
It's being built.
It
will be built, hopefully finished in May of this year.
Yeah.
So we did a lot of things prior to starting that search just to prepare, because we're first-time home buyers, and so we don't know much about buying a house. And
didn't know much.
Yeah.
We know a lot now, but we did not know much.
And our families don't live by us, so it's not like you could just be like, hey, can you come with us for whatever, just to make sure we're not, missing out on something.
Yeah.
So we had to do a lot of kind of research on our own. And so one of the people I looked at first was on Instagram. Her name is Ariane Ellsbury. She's a realtor in Atlanta. And so I liked following her because on her page she does a lot of live videos or just videos in general talking about buying a house. And so there was 2 videos on there in particular that I watched and I took a lot of notes on. I think it was called something like First Time Home Buyers or something like that. But there are 2 parts to them, and she has her I believe there's a credit person, and then there's a lender also that was a part of it with her. And so basically each person got to share, when it comes to buying a house, this is what you need to expect from a realtor. This is what you need to expect, with your credit, with the lender, all of that. So that was the first place that I looked at, and I got a lot of my information from, just simple words like earnest money. I'm like, I would not have known what earnest money is until I watched that video. So she's a really good place to look at. If you go through her videos on her page, you'll find lots of stuff there. Another person that was more tailored towards us, because we're using a physician loan, there's a Facebook group you can find, I believe it's called Real Estate Unmasked. And so it's basically for people that are going to use a physician loan. So physician loans are actually called professional loans. And
multiple different names. Yeah.
Those aren't just for physicians. Yeah. So it could be for a lawyer, dentist,
veterinarian.
Yeah, there's lots of different people that technically fall under that category. So that group is for people in those professions. And so on there, I found that the creator of the group did some trainings in the past about home buying. She's also a realtor in some other state. But she has a YouTube channel. I don't think there's a name. I think it's just Kait Whittle is her name. But if you go to her YouTube channel, there are 2 videos on there. One is talking about how to shop for a physician loan, how to pick out one that would be the best for your situation. And then there was another one that's just for first-time home buyers, kind of just what to expect, what the process is like, when you need to get stuff done by. So those were 2 really good videos that I watched also that helped give me a lot of information to prepare, especially for the physician loan process, because that process is a little different than conventional loans and other loans that might be out there.
Right. And for individuals who are more just wanting to read some things, especially for physicians and people using the physician loan, I used the White Coat Investor, had a lot of information just on real estate, buying homes and things of that nature. Also the Financial Residency podcast, which we've mentioned those before. They kind of have topics about everything. But they have a lot of blogs talking about just buying a home, what you need to look for, ways to help with your credit, just different things of that nature. So those are definitely very good resources as well. So after going through some of those resources, you'll get kind of a vast knowledge about what you need to do in order to prepare yourself. And when it comes to making sure that you're going to be able to afford the house, you want to make sure that you set a budget to get an understanding of what you can actually afford on a monthly basis.
So some of the things you're going to need to do right away, if you're thinking, I want to buy a house sometime soon, first off, you need to save up money, because you can't have anything not saved up. For us, we just kind of thought about Well, first we talked to a few lenders just to get an idea of like what the interest rates were at the time and what for the physician loan, what amount they give for that loan. So once we got that number from the lender saying like this is how much you can be approved for, we kind of then were able to see like, okay, this is the budget that we want. Like we don't want to pass this amount with buying a house. And then from there, we could kind of figure out how much money we should save. So something I've read and researched is that people will say you need anywhere from like 6 to 7% of your sales price. So I can't do the math for you, but if you're gonna buy a $200,000 house, you'll need 6 or 7% of that amount saved up, whatever that would be. And that's just basic, like a good starting point. That would cover like your down payment if you had to do one. That would be like a 3% down payment. That would cover like your inspections, your appraisals, all of the little fees, your earnest money, all of that would be in there. And so that doesn't mean you only do that amount. You can do more, of course, because you know the more you have saved up and the more you put into your house, the better. But you don't want to have less than that, basically, because you'll be stuck, especially in this market today,
you'll be stuck,
with people trying to buy homes and they're like fighting and there's bids and it's a lot going on. So you want to at least have 6%, but you know, have a little bit extra in case you might need it.
Yeah. If you can get the full 20% down and all that kind of stuff, more power to you. That's the best. That's the best rate you're going to get altogether. And again, you don't have to rely on a physician loan to not have to pay the private mortgage insurance, which is definitely a good thing. You'll be able to shop around a little bit more. So if you can do that, go for it.
It's good to do, but you don't have to. Some people feel like, oh, I have to do that to buy a house. You really, the lowest you need is at least 3%, but anywhere from 3 to 20% saved up for the down payment. That's just the down payment. That's not all the other fees. You should be good to go with that. And then something else we did was like talk about just what we want in a house, which thankfully we're pretty similar. Like we have similar tastes.
Not trying to fight on that.
And all of that. So we just kind of had to figure out like how many bedrooms, how many bathrooms, like what are things that we really want to have in a house? What are things that like we could live without? Just stuff like that. Because I feel like if you don't know that ahead of time and you're just going around, you're just going to be like,
you're going to be aimless.
I don't know if I like this. Maybe I do like that. So that was a good starting point. And that's something your realtor's going to ask you anyway when they're trying to pull houses for you. So you're going to need to know what you like and what you don't like. Something else you need to either have already in good standing or you might have to work on it is your credit. So that's something that lenders are going to pull. They're going to look at your credit scores. They're going to look at, they pull, it's like 3 reports. They'll see 3 scores and they pick the middle score out of all the 3 numbers. And so if you're buying a house, like for us, for example, we are not both putting our name on the loan. If we were, what the lender would do is that they would pull my 3 numbers and they would pull his 3 numbers and they would look at both of our middle numbers and they pick the lowest.
Yeah.
So like,
make sure.
Say my middle number is like 500 and his middle number is like 720. They'll be like, we're going with the 500 one. So that's another reason you might not want to have both people on the loan. Just pick one person and then put both people on the deed of the house. That way also, you know, once you've bought your house, if you decide down the road, like, hey, now I want to go buy a car or I want to buy a second home, you have one person that's like kind of freed up to do that. So that's something your credit you might have to work on. There's people out there that can help you with that. I think for physician loan, ideally you want your score to be around like a 720, 740.
The higher it is, the better rate you're going to get. So you want at least a 720 a lot of times, but people will approve you for a little bit lower of a credit score. So just kind of, you'll have to kind of shop around sometimes also in order to do that. But before starting the process, when you're thinking about trying to get a house, make sure that you pull one of those free credit reports. I think it's like freecreditreport.com or something like that. You get basically one free credit report, so you definitely want to pull that early to kind of, so you're not surprised it is okay to use like Credit Karma and on Mint and Credit Sesame, all those different things. They'll give you an average or what it's around, but sometimes there's some things on there that's missing. So sometimes you just want to pull an official one, just to kind of have that information on hand, and you know whether or not you need to wait a little bit to work on that credit score if you're good to go.
Another one you can use is, I think, My FICO or something like that.
Something like that.
That's real similar to the one that the lender was going to use. The only thing with that, I think they do charge you something. And sometimes some of those places might like affect your score. Like
Briefly.
It'll drop it a few points and then it'll go back up like a few weeks later. It'll go back up those points. So that's something to keep in mind. Ideally, you want to use something that's not going to affect your score whenever you check it, because if you're checking it like all the time, you don't want it to keep going up and down all over. So I feel like Credit Karma is a really good place to start with, because it, as far as I know, doesn't affect your score just by checking it. And it gives you at least a good ballpark idea of where you're at, so that you can, like, you know, make it better or do whatever. But with a physician loan, something I learned was that once you get to a certain score, like, doesn't matter how much higher you go, like your rates aren't going to really get any much better. So like if your score, if the cap is like 760 and your score is a 820, like, they're like, that's great. We don't, it's, you know, the cap is 760. So just because it's 820, it's not going to make it that much better. Unfortunately, it'd be nice if it did. But once you hit that like 760 or whatever the amount is and up, your rate is pretty much the same going forward. Doesn't really change too much.
Yeah, and another thing that I actually didn't know until this process was, when you're getting your time where you're going to actually shop and look at different lenders, and the different lenders are wanting to pull your reports and all those kind of things, you actually have, I think it's 14 days to where you can have other people pull your report without causing any drop in your credit score. So try to block all of your lenders into that period, so you're not having a lot of fluctuation in your credit score.
One last thing that might be helpful if you're about to start your home buying process is just to talk to people that have done it. So especially if you're going to do a physician loan, talk to other physicians or whoever that have used a loan. Like, ask them lenders they've used, or you know, what their experience has been like with those people. You could ask, you know, as you do that, you kind of get a list for yourself of like, these are people that I might want to consider checking with, and just kind of gives you a good starting point to figure out like which way you want to go with trying to get your loan. And then with that too, they can share like, hey, I didn't know about this, so make sure you do that, or like, this was something I didn't know that happened. I know for us, like, we were initially wanting to do a resale home, but then with how the market is, it just wasn't going to happen. And so we did a new construction home, but that was like a whole nother thing when it comes to physician loans. Like, we had no idea, like, the process is a little bit different than with a resale home. Maybe that could be like another video, but that was something we were not prepared for. And so it was like, okay, trying to understand, like, okay, how does it work now with a new construction home? Like, how does the loan work? And so talking with other people that have done it, especially if they're using the same loan as you, that will help you like prepare and kind of know what obstacles you might come up across during your process.
All right, so thank you guys for watching. Feel free to subscribe. You can follow us on our Instagram page at Marriage and Medicine. We'll see y'all in the next video.